with the S&P falling as much as it did and Bitcoin corrected only by 8%, doesn't mean that Bitcoin is late to the party and will eventually follow the S&P 500 going all the way to the $70,000? Or was this the bottom for crypto? And now, with especially the pause on the tariffs and the negotiations between Trump and many other countries, some people say even 70 countries are already talking with the United States to settle these tariffs, does that mean that now the bottom is in and we should expect for a rally until mid to end of 2025? Well, we're going to look at all of the data today and discuss about it in today's video. Let's jump right into it. So as I said before, with the S&P 500 going down more than 20%, meanwhile, Bitcoin, yeah, it had a significant move, but not comparable to the scale that happened in the S&P 500. Should we expect a bottom now, a consolidation period, and then a rally? What should we expect? So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of overlay from past times, showing other times where Bitcoin and the S&P 500, they were not linear. Sometimes the S&P 500 was scaling, it was going up a lot, and Bitcoin was stagnating, was consolidating into a steady period. So this historical data is not very helpful to us because right now it is the opposite. The S&P 500 is going down, meanwhile Bitcoin is almost stagnated. So we have to understand that there's risk of recessions, there are talks of inflation going up, there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and we can see that reflecting in the VIX. The VIX is the volatility index. It is a little bit like the fear and greed index for the S&P 500, and especially what it shows us is when it crossed the 30 mark, it means there is extreme fear, and we saw a spike from 15, 13 all the way to 46 points. That means that indeed there was a lot of accumulated fear all at once. But when the VIX is above the 30 threshold that I said, this marks the bottom. And we can see that historically, when the VIX went above that, the only time when that did not happen was in the '08 crash, but that was followed by a bottom shortly after and then a huge recovery. So other than the housing crash in '08, every time that the VIX crossed that line, it marked the bottom followed by a rally. So now if you look at the VIX and we overlay this data, maybe what we saw last week was a possible bottom, and now we should start see the S&P 500 moving up. That would mean that Bitcoin most likely is due to bottom anytime soon around the 84, 83, maybe even $80,000, and then we should start seeing and following the rally that comes from stock markets. Another thing that is positive and is holding us back from just making extremely pessimistic thumbnails is that jobless claims are still very low. Jobless data shows how many people are unemployed or filing for unemployment in the United States. And that number has a lot of correlation with not only inflation, but also recession. Because if there's a lot of people that are jobless, it means that there's a lot of less money flowing into the economy, in and out. And that breaks the cycle of people working, making money, spending money, which goes back to companies that are paying people to work. So if that cycle breaks, margin goes down, a lot of things happen, price of things change, and then people lose their jobs. When they don't have jobs, they don't have money to spend, the economy stops, stalls, and sometimes even goes down, brings in the recession that everyone is afraid of. But we don't see that so far. Jobless data is steady. It is at a very low point, meaning that we are in a steady situation for the American market, which is what dominates and leads the global market. That being said, we already talked about global liquidity here. And global liquidity is skewed, meaning that whatever happens has a time to affect the crypto market. And right now it seems that it has bottomed and is going up, meaning that in a 3-month period, we could see a spike in price on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole. Overall, we're not pessimistic. We are very optimistic that the market has indeed bottomed or is very close to bottoming out and then calling for another run upwards. That being said, we also have the tariffs, like we mentioned before, that are paused for 90 days. And we have countries like Japan, like Korea, like Brazil, that are calling in and trying to speak with Trump to fix and negotiate these tariffs to make it work for both sides and both countries. So our hope is that none of these tariffs, other than maybe the China one, will actually take place, and it would just be to scare people, just scare other countries into submission. That is not a good thing at all. That's just a crappy move, but it is Trump's strategy overall. So if that works out, then that fear of a recession will be dismissed. we have banks, we have Goldman Sachs, a lot of other banks, JP Morgan, calling for a recession now more than ever. A lot of people are talking about this recession, but again, the tariffs seem to be the huge catalyst behind this. So when these tariff talks are gone, then we are going to see the market correct and go back up like we saw in 2018 when we had another scare, still when Trump was president, and another market crash of 15% because of these tariff talks that people were hearing from Trump, again, taxing China. So now, if we jump into crypto, before we jump into crypto, if you go to the copy trading strategy on Bitopics, this month we are killing it. This month we're doing amazing. You can see that even the line starts to go more vertical right here because we had an amazing couple of days. So far we are at 3.78, so almost 4% in the month of April. I'm hopeful that we're going to close above the 4% this month. So maybe again, after a plateau of yield right here, we should see it go up again. This would be very, very fortunate for us. Also, the Phoenix strategy is doing very, very good. And if you don't know, these are USDC, USDT strategies. There's no other coin that you need to buy, just this. And when you have that, you just deposit into Bitopics, deposit into the copy trading strategy, and we do the trading for you. And we haven't had any negative month for 2 years straight now. The Phoenix has been running since 2023. The 0DT has been running since 2024, and we have not lost a single month. So this is fantastic. This is a great work by the team. So if you are using Bitopics, comment down below or go into our Discord to thank the team for the amazing job that they're doing by trading our money and making it profitable for all of us. So now moving on, let's talk about the prices itself of our favorite crypto. So Bitcoin is below the 84,000. Once again, we have Ethereum at 1,500, XRP at 207, BNB at 582, and Solana at 125. So some of that profit that we saw carrying over from last week, we already gave it back because Bitcoin went from around 85,000 all the way to 83 right now. Ethereum, which was above the 1,600, now is below that 1,600. Solana, we saw it going back to 130. So we kind of gave away a little bit of that profit that we saw last week. But now, if we look at the liquidations in the past 24 hours, 68% of those were longs, especially BTC, Ethereum, and then we have OM for some reason with 15 million and other small altcoins. So in the past 24 hours, $248 million were liquidated. And now by looking at the charts, this is what it means. Bitcoin, even though it went down quite fast and quite a lot, it is still not compared to how much we saw the S&P 500 go down. If you overlay the two, the S&P 500 went down way more than crypto did. So that creates that uncertainty if Bitcoin still has more to give and go down even more, or if Bitcoin is done. Now that marked the bottom. So the bottom would be around the $74,000 for Bitcoin. If we actually look at Ethereum, Ethereum is still not looking good. There is not a single bullish thing on Ethereum so far because the RSI is descending, the charts are descending, so it is forming lower lows. It is still holding this diagonal line right here, this imaginary resistance right here, all the way to the bottom. We're still below the moving averages, and we don't have enough volume to see a surge in volatility. So Ethereum still doesn't make sense for us right now. Solana actually broke the pattern. If you pull a line right here, Solana actually broke above that right around here. Now we should see if it holds this price action, which is the 120, which is what we actually called as a strong place to look for even before. So a few days ago, maybe 10, 15 days ago, I told you that the 120, 121, 24, this range right here is very strong and it is very significant because it marked the bottom right here from last year. So if we hold that, then we're going to be able to see an uptrend for Solana. So hopefully with all this information, you're able to take steps, take profitable steps. What I'm personally doing, I was able to get out of Ethereum. So all of my Ethereum is out. Now I cashed that back into USDC and I am holding that on Bitopics, on the copy trading, because it is making me passive income every month. So my strategy now is to look for an opportunity to figure out not where exactly the bottom will be, but to wait for strong, reliable signals that tell me that we marked the bottom and now we're going to go up. And what I'm going to do is buy more leaps. You saw last year how leaps were profitable. We saw 200% increase on these leaps. We saw a lot of money to be made with these leaps, especially on the Bitcoin ones. The Ethereum ones, they kind of let us down. The Bitcoin ones performed very, very well. So if we are able to have Solana leaps as well, I'm going to buy those Bitcoin and Solana leaps and just hold them for the end of the cycle, maybe the end of this year, and see where we go from there. That is my strategy with the copy trading as well. And let me know in the comments, what is your strategy? If you're just going to go perpetuals, if you're just going to, 200x max bidding, long Bitcoin, or what other strategies you have going on, comment down below and we can chat on the Discord as well. Is the second link in the description. I already added right here. Join the Discord, ask whatever questions or share whatever you need to share over there. And with that, we end the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one for more content and more crypto talk. So thank you very much, and I'll see you then. Peace.